on the consultant firm selected, they can be high and low. So each of those individual items vary. They did provide cost estimates on the level of effort that they would provide. Based on the level of effort that Tanner Pacific has recommended, we believe that they would be the most thorough and minimize potential change orders in the future. So staff recommends going forward with Tanner Pacific. Based on their cost estimates, based on the level of effort, they are actually the third lowest. So the highest was approximately 9.4 million, somewhere around there. Number 2 was CSG, which was our third consultant that we ranked, and they were at 6.9 million. The number 3 was Tanner Pacific, who's being recommended tonight at roughly 6.6 million, I believe.
6.9.
6.9? Mm-hmm. And then the lowest was NGO, who we're not recommending tonight, that was ranked number 2.
Okay, so looking at the numbers, again, I share the same concern, Councilmember Awasi. Maybe, thank you for the answer about the public part of it, but I think for me as a council member, for me to do my job, to do my fiscal responsibility, fiduciary responsibility to the community, I need to see those. And I think at the last time we had, this is a $7 million, and I texted yesterday, I'm asking, I think yesterday or the day before, where are these bids? Where are these proposals, whatever you want to call them? Why are they not in the report for us to review, for me to review, and come do my homework and provide you with the questions so I could come in today, be prepared to give you a decision whether this firm is the right firm, in my view, to move forward. For me, that is, you're not equipping me with enough information to do this. I had to scramble today to the council's office to look at those bids, and quite frankly, that's not enough time. And so let me ask you a question. I mean, there's a big gap. So obviously the $9.6 million proposal from TRC would be thrown out of 4. All 3, the rest of them, 2 of them are almost $6.9 million. And then you have that one for 5.4. Can you tell me what's the problem with that 5.4 proposal?
Just in simple terms, the level of effort put into the cost proposal was in the neighborhood of 31,000 hours for over the 3 years of this project. That was the lowest level of effort of all the other proposals. It ranged from 31,000 to 50,000. We had 2 other firms in the mid-30s, mid to high 30s. No. So that's the difference in the pricing. The pricing of the people, the principal engineers are the same, no matter pretty much what firm you're talking about.
Right.
Residential engineers, office engineers, staff, geologists, inspectors. It's all within the same range. It's a matter of how the comfort level we felt during their presentation of how they would be able to handle change orders, how they'd be able to handle directing contractor to do the work that's on the plans.
And thank you for that answer, and I have no problem entrusting in staff's professional view and recommendation to council. The challenge for me is is some information, I don't need an answer, but I would like to see information presented to me and hopefully to council in a timely manner, where if you were in my position sitting here today, you'd get this information not available in your packet on a Friday afternoon that I need to come here Tuesday to give you a decision. And mind you, I understand the critical part of this project and the timeline. God knows we got delayed so much with BCDC, and I don't want to delay this 1 second longer. But I think, as much as I don't want to delay it, I want to be comfortable that I could look at the public in the eye and say, you know what? I really did my best. I reviewed all the material, and I came up to that decision. I can't do that today. Unfortunately, I cannot do that today. What I have today in the report is Staff is providing you with this, and we're recommending you approve this. And again, I'm not questioning the staff recommendation, but I need to do my own due diligence. Otherwise, I'm failing my community. I'm not doing my responsibility. But let me take you back to your slide on the timeline. I have a question on that. So today, here we are, and then I look at bid period open. Jeff, probably you could answer this. And you're going to award, when you open the bid on March 2020, when would you award the construction? If you open the bid and you kind of...
Just to clarify, the bid period open is not the bid award, it's not the actual opening of the bid, it's when the bids are going to be out. We're going to be out for 5 weeks at least for contractors to take a look at the plans and figure out what they're going to do.
Okay, so that would bring us to April.
It's going to be, yeah, we'll be awarding construction in probably mid to end of May. We're talking May.
Why wouldn't we put bid period open? Here we are in the middle of January. Why do we have to wait till March?
There's a time where the construction manager first has to be awarded. Once the project once the contract is awarded for the construction manager, then at that point they would do a constructability review and a review of the plans and specifications, as well as develop the best method of delivery of the project. That's going to take some time, and we've already restricted and shrunk the schedule down as much as possible. So the critical path needs to be followed, and it's minimized as much as possible. So once the plans are finalized, and the whole point of having a constructability review is to minimize change orders during construction. So we need to choose the best consultant that's available to conduct that constructability review, as well as managing the project during construction to minimize those change orders. So all of that is included in that critical path schedule that's shown to you tonight.
Right. So in the process of when these firms responded to the RFP, they went through the plan, they reviewed it. Obviously, they're not 100% each part of it, but they spent quite some time. I would imagine maybe the gentleman from Tanner Pacific could answer. I'm assuming you spent at least a couple of weeks on this. Probably have a lot of people on your staff looking over the project.
We didn't have really the detailed plans to look at everything, but we looked as much as we could.
Would you mind coming to the podium so the public could hear you?
Sorry.
With your permission.
Sure, please.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. We did our best. We only had a certain period of time to look at the documentation that was available. So during that time, we made the best guess, did our best homework, understanding, having done this work before, to figure out how best to propose for this project and the people and the effort, more importantly, to put forward for this project in order to bring you a successful project in the end. And that's really the key factor. So have we had the time to really spend to look in detail? No. That's why we proposed doing a constructability review where we can really focus on the details of the specifications and the plans and the details in order to provide our recommendations and then allow those recommendations to be reviewed by Norm and his staff and the design consultant.
And that review, constructability review, how long would you estimate that would take your firm to do?
It's a good hard 3 weeks. A very good hard 3 weeks, maybe 4, depending on.
Maybe 4 weeks, got it.
So
roughly so we are in third week of January, roughly toward the end of February, you should have that
Correct.
back to staff.
Yes.
Okay. And what would you say if I were, what would you tell me? I saw the report and I actually skimmed through your presentation over at the council's office. Why would you think you are the best firm? What is it that could provide Foster City that is so unique to this project that the others don't have? What distinguishes you from them?
My truthful answer is our approach. We approach every project that we work on as a team. We don't ever approach it from this is our project and you contractor have to do what we tell you to do. It's now we become part of the team that Norm has developed over the last several years to get to where you are, and then eventually have to bring a contractor in as well who doesn't even have as much time as several other firms in order to get prepared to actually do the construction. And so our approach is always bring everybody together, let's talk about what's best for the project. And we bring that same focus and that same approach throughout the entire duration of the project. And we have a history of doing that over and over and over again. We're literally doing it right down the street for Silicon Valley Clean Water on some very, very large multi-million-dollar projects. So that's what I believe sets us apart, but I think you would probably have to ask Norm if that meshes with him, but that's what I believe sets us
Appreciate
apart.
your answer. Thank you.
So with the permission of the council, I'm uncomfortable asking qualitative questions of the person here because there were other bids that are not, this is unprofessional. It's also, I think, puts us in a legal situation. So I would ask legal counsel if I'm correct, but we are awarding a substantial contract, and with all the concerns everybody else has raised, I would caution us not to ask those type of questions of one applicant that we don't have the others in the room to answer those same questions. It creates an unfair environment to make considerations. I'm not uncomfortable with staff answering questions. But anyway, am I wrong? Jean?
I don't think it puts you in any legal jeopardy because any one of the four
Right.
proposers could have been here this evening if they wanted to make, and maybe they are, if they want to make a presentation, because you've not made a decision yet.
I just think that we should give fair, if we're going to go on the route of giving everybody fair opportunity, we should give everybody fair opportunity. And it's certainly not fair to the others who may have bid on the project. There's substantial case law in this and precedents and other, not maybe tonight in this situation, where others, especially minority-run companies, are disadvantaged from the process. So anyway, just my comments. I have other comments and questions when we get to that portion.
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem. Well, I appreciate your concern and you chiming in on this. But just in summary, I mean, as much as I want to move this forward, Madam Mayor, I am not comfortable today, given what I have and the amount of period of time, to make that decision. And so that's hence why I'm asking,
no,
because I
valid.
knew beforehand that I'm not prepared today to make that decision,
Valid.
given the point.
Yeah.
But
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilmember.
So, I've been here for a while. So many years ago, we had a city manager who would, Jim Hardy, who would give us 700 pages of material on a Thursday for a Monday meeting and sometimes on a Friday. He was then instructed by myself, Charlie Berninsky, and others, and I think it was Sam as well, not to do that ever again. And in fact, if he ever brought an issue before us where we got the agenda a Thursday and it was 700 pages of materials that needed to be read and required some sort of review, we would not consider the item. I have some questions and comments regarding this, and I always like to support the council when they're uncomfortable that they don't have enough information. One of the questions was raised with regard to budget, but my question, and doesn't need to be answered today, is what is the budgetary impact for the delay, and are we going to be on budget? Number two is, and it's been said, this is not to question staff's ability to choose an expert, and in fact, staff is expert on this, and the reason we chose this method of construction was that we felt that it could best control cost for the public. And so in so much as it doesn't delay the time limit, and I don't believe it will, it just gives the council an opportunity to move forward, unless there is a pressing deadline with regard to CEQA or any of the other agencies, but I believe we've cleared all those hurdles. Now the hurdle is on us just to get shovel and ground. With regard to the lowest responsible bid, as you know, in the past, we have, most of us have fought to get other agencies to follow the lowest responsible bid. And so just people can be clear what that means. Lowest responsible bid does not mean the lowest bid. It means the bid that the staff or the council believes is the lowest and responsible bid. It doesn't have to be the lowest bid. So in the case of the school district, they are finally building a school. Instead of a $60 million building, they're building one to budget. And they had to go to a lowest responsible bid, and they did that. My last comment is with regard to the time and the policy change. So it has been a longstanding policy, of at least the council as long as I've been on it, that we don't consider items unless we feel that we have adequate time to prepare ourselves to speak about it. And that means that the materials, especially if they are dense and require some questions back and forth from staff, that the council is able to do that. And so to the degree that my colleagues feel that that has not occurred, I'm not opposed to delaying it, understanding the need for expedience on this in particular. My final question is for staff, and this is strictly a budget question. Are we, because it's been intimated that we're not going to be on budget, are we still within shooting range of the budget, understanding the escalating cost of time and delays? In the past, we had delayed a project that cost us $500,000 on a $2 million project for parks. So are we in that same problem now, Norm, or no?
On your last answer, we still believe we're in the $80 to $90 million range. We won't know until we fill this budget.
Is any delay tonight giving the council appropriate time? And I don't believe that we need to open the bids for the public. The public are no more experts than the council is in this, and the council was elected to make decisions on behalf of the public after the public has input. So
the delay will be, next scheduled council meeting is potentially February 18th or whatever that date is.
Right.
Or I don't know if we're having
Is there any value to the concern raised by the council that the bids should be reviewed by the council and the council should have input as to the company chosen?
My only comment is that these are not bids, as Jeff pointed out. It's a consultant, our request for proposal for level of effort.
So is there so in the past when we did, I wasn't on the council, but I watched the process for Marabella first and then for New Homes Company, which I served on part of that. We had several people came forward that wanted to design and do everything for that. And we did see all those and we did give our input in those, and ultimately we chose that. Is this a level of review that would be common or uncommon for a council?
In my opinion, that would be uncommon for a council to review the proposals in this fashion. Staff, as Norm had mentioned, we had 2 engineers in the room that interviewed the consultants. In addition to the 2 engineers, we had 2 independent consultants that worked on the levee project as well. As a result of that, I think it would be important that you be present as part of the interview process to hear what each of those consultants offers, and rather than just reviewing the proposals. So I think we've done the due diligence on our part with our experts to review the proposals and recommend
You're saying that
appropriately.
ship has sailed?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay, thank you. Those are just my comments and questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Hindi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to be clear to everyone, I'm not questioning the judgment of staff or the work of staff. And I think I qualified this by saying you are the professional and you are the one who's doing this job. But please do understand that I have a responsibility to the public, that I'm asking for more information on this item. And I think what's more important, Madam Mayor, is for future items, that we need to be provided with all the information that you have, that you come to that decision, so we could evaluate, so we could agree or disagree with you. That's our job. You cannot be the staff and the council. Plain and simple. So I think it's important perhaps we could agendize this for more discussion at any point. What is expected that comes in the reports from staff to the council? And I think for time expediency, if the majority of the council agrees that we need more information before we make a decision, I don't have a problem having a special meeting next week, in a week, to make it happen. But I cannot just be expected to make a decision on something I don't know about. Plain and simple. And again, this is not to question staff's judgment, but I have to do my job.
Yes, Councilmember.
I'm not, and I hope it wasn't, you didn't feel like I was saying that you were. I heard clearly, and I think we all are saying clearly, we don't question staff. With regard to the second comment, the only thing that I'll share is the city manager has authority up until $50,000 to make business decisions on behalf of the council. And the council is a policymaking body and not the business arm of it until it exceeds that authority. So I guess the only thing I would caution us, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have a review of this, is to what degree do we insert ourselves into the business of doing business in those departments? And I don't have an opinion about that. I think it might be a worthy discussion for a policy summit. But I hear what you're saying, and I'm just trying to reconcile the two things, which are the CEO is the business, and we expect him to do the business of the city with regard to the policy considerations. We are the policymakers. And we can certainly set policies that transcend those. But at the point where we do that, then we hamstring the regular operation of the business of the city. And that's all I'm saying, Sam. You imagine if in your business, if that.
No, I understand. I mean, so may I?
Sure.
So just to answer your question, to why are we asking this? Because at the end of the day, Councilmember Perez, we are the one who's going to be approving the $7 million too. So it is, if I'm approving, we are approving the $7 million, we have to. Otherwise, don't bring it to us.
Yeah.
If the city manager or the staff is authorized to spend $7 million, then I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
This is within their purview. But it is not. So if it's coming to council to approve it, that means we are authorizing it, we are stamping our approval on it, and I can't approve it without having the information before me, plain and simple.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember.
So I completely agree with Councilmember Hindi. I also want to reiterate and emphasize whatever we are providing as guideline today should apply to future projects too. So it's not our intention to delay this, but at the same time, when it's mentioned in the staff report that the proposals are available for council to review, if I'm doing my due diligence, I should be reviewing those, and there should be ample time to review that. And it was just a plain, simple matter of sending an email. It was in December sometime, as I understand it. The reports are available, the proposals are available. It will be in a future agenda item, just that simple step. And I also want to clarify that while in the past, 700 pages reports were not okay, as Councilmember Perez mentioned with Jim Hardy, I know we need to learn from the past, but if current council needs those, they should be provided.
No. Let me just clarify. I didn't say they weren't needed. What I said was exactly what you're all saying. If Jim gave us a report, which was his practice, a day before the meeting, because whatever, they're busy, we refused to consider the items, as we should.
I see. So
I'm not
that's
saying we all want 1,000-page reports because we don't have anything else to do.
Right.
But we want them in a timely fashion so we have, I don't think anybody's saying it differently. Give us the stuff with enough time.
Well,
the only question is at what level, and in defense of staff, tonight what they brought to us was they did their due diligence, what they felt to be their due diligence, and they brought to us what they would be comfortable with, and they're going to have to execute the project, what they would be. What I'm hearing tonight is you didn't give us enough time to look at this to see if we're comfortable with it, and I'm fine with that. The question is, do you want to go one step further and say, by the way, we'd like to see all the bids. There may be once those are public, are those public?
Yes.
Okay, so once they're public, yeah, you can put them all in the thing and say, here's what we chose from, and here's your review. So if that's what we want to see in the future, I think you say that, and then they provide it. So I don't disagree. I just want to make sure that what I said was heard and not misinterpreted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Vice Mayor.
Big ticket item. So I think after hearing the concerns that have been raised, and I haven't heard your comments yet, Mayor, if there's a way to, as Councilmember Hindi said, provide the information and have a special meeting, I'm up for it. I do not want to delay this. At the same time, we have to look at each other. We have to be able to look at the community. I don't think pushing it out a month is a reasonable alternative. I think I'd probably end up at the same conclusion as our staff did. I think the experts looked at it. I respect the position that I owe it to my community to look at it as well. But I do have faith in what the staff did. So I don't feel comfortable pushing this out to February 18th. But I do feel comfortable pushing out 7 days and doing our homework.
Thank you. Well, I have a couple of questions. So, I'm looking at this, I'm kind of in the middle on this one. Is this amount what you thought it would cost originally?
It's definitely in the ballpark between, like I put in the report, between in the presentation, between $5 and $9 million. It's standard in the industry for a project of this size and complexity. 6.5 miles long. There's a tremendous amount of testing that's going to be required for this project. As I mentioned, almost half of the $7 million is going to be for testing. You know, to the geotech and the testing firms, material inspections. We've got tons and tons and tons, literal tons of metal sheet piles that are going to be put in the ground. We need to test those before they go in the ground.
Okay, so if we delayed it for a week or a week and a half, maybe for a special meeting, how long would that delay the entire, I mean, does that?
Would be 1 for 1. So for
1
every
for 1.
week we delay would be a week delay on the
Week.
project.
Okay. Because what I'm hearing is people are not comfortable without looking at the documents. Now, for me, I think the staff has done their job in reviewing the documents and the proposals. I wouldn't probably know what I'm looking at with some of the documentation anyway, but I think that the council needs to feel, I'm hearing that the council needs to feel comfortable with making a decision on such a large amount of money. So I think my suggestion would be, if everyone would agree, that we postpone it and we table this to our maybe a special meeting next week. My issue is I'm out of town starting tomorrow through the rest of the week at a conference. So I personally will not have a chance to look at those documents before next Monday. But I think probably we should take a vote on it and then just, can we, yes, Councilman Perez.
I mean, a suggestion might be, so the documents are, the documents, there's one set of documents, correct?
What type of documents are you referring to?
So the documents that we don't have enough, that were left in the council order
The
for review.
proposals. Yes.
Can I see it? All right, so I don't need to, I don't need to see it, I mean, just see the volume of it. Can we get those of us that may not be available, can we get a copy of the documents either digitally, just PDF it and get it to the people that need it so they can at least look at it on a plane or something, and then get back to staff as we usually do in this situation with any questions and or concerns? And then at that point, the mayor will have the latitude, as she always does, to try to schedule a meeting at the convenience of the council. If everybody's okay with that, then that would, what I would propose we do tonight is table the item to some point in the future and let the mayor figure out what that point is. Sooner than later, I'm hearing from everyone. And then provide the documents in a PDF form, if appropriate, to the council members that don't have the opportunity. It's only one set of documents. Provide the PDFs to everybody. Once you make a PDF, it's a PDF.
So is that a motion?
Yeah, I mean, do we need one? Motion to table with those caveats.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I do have a comment or a question, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Jeff, let's say we convene a week from today or Monday.
She's not here.
I'm sorry?
She's not here.
Right.
I'm here Monday, but I'm out for the rest of the week.
Got it. So if we convene Monday, you'll be present,
I
But
would
you-
be present,
but
but
not able to review the documents.
possibly, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned, sorry, my question is kind of specific to, you said if we delay 1 week, the entire thing will be delayed. So there's no cushion built in the timeline
There is
for
no
to make
cushion.
up that week.
We've constricted the schedule as much as possible in order to get to construction as fast as we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And the staff report wouldn't change, nor the recommendation, so that would remain the same.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion to table and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Motion carries 5-0. All council members voted yes.
Thank you. And we'll work on the meeting date. Next item, please.
Item 8.2, consideration of audited fiscal year 2018-2019 comprehensive annual financial report and the fiscal year 2018-2019 warrant registers in the form of that CAFR.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Edmonton Finance Director. Before you is the CAFR, which is our comprehensive annual financial report, and associated with that is also the auditor's opinion and the audited financial statements. Pleased to share with the community and the City Council and the community that over the past year, the city continued to do well financially. We had provided the more details previously in the Q4 report. So this CAFR report really focuses on what we did last year, which is to talk about how much we have in the general fund reserve at the end of the fiscal year. The City Council may recall what we did last year was to talk about specifically what the rollover surplus is. And we did have a rollover surplus for fiscal year 18-19 as well. Not to the size as the previous year, albeit it's still a sizable amount there. So we ended the fiscal year at $52.2 million in terms of our general fund reserve. And when we measure our reserve level, we had looked at 100% reserve level as the guideline, as we did in the previous year. So that came out to be $45.4 million. So $45.4 million, for everyone's benefit, is really our operating budget for this current year. So we use that as the base, and everything over and above that, we call that as the rollover surplus. And last year, what we did with this rollover surplus was a couple things. We used it. Item number one was to pay down our unfunded pension liability with CalPERS. And then we also used a part of those reserves to fully fund our building maintenance internal service fund, which was deficient. So that came out to be about $3 million for the building maintenance reserve fund, including some contributions from the two enterprise funds, that being the water and wastewater fund. So going back to the pension item, we contributed about $3.5 million to CalPERS, which was an additional payment, so that the purpose was to reduce our unfunded liability. What we did also in the prior year was also establish a brand new fund, a facilities replacement fund, for specifically building structures, which we don't have. We have internal service funds for equipment, IT, and building maintenance, but not building replacement. So we established that last year and put in $716,000. The remainder $716,000, we put it into the city CIP fund, recognizing that the city is fast approaching its 50th birthday, and infrastructure needs are aplenty, so to speak. So for this year, with the surplus that we have of almost $6.8 million after the final count, we did have an opportunity to talk to the pension subcommittee and share with them the update in terms of our unfunded liability with our pension consultant, provide updated information to the pension subcommittee, and we looked at a couple of scenarios, and the fact that our unfunded liability continues to grow is well in excess of $81 million now. And one option of that we identify in terms of potentially continuing to reduce that pension liabilities was to finish the payoff of one layer, if I may, of our pension base, the liability base. The original layer was about $7 million, so we paid about 3.5, so left about 3.5 remaining. So that conversation was held, and some discussions ensued, and the pension subcommittee did make a recommendation to use $3.5 million of the rollover surplus for that purpose. And as far as the remaining balance, that was delegated to staff for discussion, and myself and City Manager Moneta had that conversation about what else we can potentially use that for. And it's really just for conversational purposes, because this report really talks about potential uses of the surplus. We're not asking for City Council direction yet. The direction really is the resolution on the CAFR itself and the warrant register. But we wanted to kind of have that discussion early, because we'll have another opportunity to have another discussion down the road, whether in the budget study session or potentially even at your policy and vision meeting. So long and short of it, staff is recommending that the remainder of the rollover surplus over and above the $3.5 million, half of it go to city CIP and the other half going to the facilities replacement fund, subject to obviously discussion by the City Council. So really, at the end of the day, again, we have an opportunity to use almost $6.8 million of reserves for various purposes as directed by the City Council. So this concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions regarding the report. I'm sorry, I should mention that obviously the CAFR and the audit financial statements did have a clean opinion, which really speaks to the fact that the financial statements are fairly presented in material aspects.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Wall.
So just to clarify, Edmund, so today you're not making the recommendation to use roughly half of the surplus for paying for pension liability fund, correct?
Yes, we're making the recommendation only from the perspective to share information with the City Council. We're not looking for actually a decision at this point in time. We're introducing the topic, so to speak.
So for that, should I reserve the questions to, like, such as what other uses did we look at? Did the subcommittee look at? So subcommittee will share, like, that was done, that was how it was done last time. Who is in the pension?
It's the mayor and Councilmember Hindi.
So it'll be presented at a later date, correct? Okay. So, okay, I'll save my questions for then. No other questions?
Thank you.
Your questions? Yes, Councilmember Perez.
So can you explain what it means when you say that you got a clean bill of health from CAFRs?
Yes, so an audit really is a review of the financial position of the city. Obviously, audits are required for every local government, and what the auditors are attesting to is that the financial statements and the financial position of the city is fairly presented in material aspects. That is to say that they're not going to get down to the penny. However, they've satisfied themselves in terms of the professional standards of the auditors and coming to that conclusion that these financial statements are fairly presented. And this standard is similar to in both the government sector and also the private sector in terms of that attestation function and in terms of the opinion that the auditors would render.
When was the last year, if any, that the city was found not to have met the CAFR standards or not receive an award for its compliance with general GAAP principles of accounting?
I'm not aware that we were ever in a situation where we did not have a clean opinion.
So in 2011, 2008, 2012, 2014, so on and so forth, you've reconciled the books of the city?
Yes.
And you've met the general accounting principles?
That's correct. We've met the general accepted accounting principles as those standards, as they are prescribed.
So are there, and I'm just curious because I've become aware of something that I didn't know. So when you go in and you pay for a planning commission permit, for example, who do they pay?
Planning commission permit. So
you go up to the planning, you go up to the community development desk. Who takes the payment?
So the way that works, and if I'm speaking something wrong, I'll let the community development director chime in. They speak to staff at the counter, and whatever the application is that they are submitting, whatever the fees associated with that is calculated, and then the payment is made directly across to the finance counter.
So finance the finance department handles all the payments of the city. Are there any that don't?
Yes, there are some that don't. Well, specifically, I'll name two departments that right off the top of my head. One is the police department. Some people go directly to the police department and ask for a police report, as an example. So there's an exchange of funds for the payment of the police report. And obviously, we have the Parks and Recreation Department that also has a function in terms of dealing with monies. So people can, of course, register online for classes, or they can come to the Recreation Center and talk to staff and do their transactions over the counter with staff also.
And then who reconciles those? In the case of the police department, and so the two aberrant intakes of cash with police department and park and rec, who reconciles those?
So each department has the ability to collect and have receipts for those. So at the end of the day, that information comes to finance, and we record those transactions in something called the general ledger. So we do have the information necessary to record those transactions, whether it's police transactions or the Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec obviously has a software program that has the ability to capture classes that are registered and the fees associated with that, so that information does come to us.
So when you do your audit at the end of the year, your internal audit for your department, and then you get your, at the end of the year, you come every year and you say, this is what we spent, this is what we took in. And so then we've approved those budgets and the year-end reports, and we get the quarterly reports. Who's responsible for reconciling those?
In terms of reconciliation, reconciliation occurs at different parts of that whole flow, if I may.
Well, who signs off on it at the end?
Who signs of it? Well, basically, the way it works is that each department implicitly signs off on a transaction that they handle, so to speak, right? So if, as an example, I'll use the two departments again, right? I'll use Parks and Rec this time. So if somebody says, I'm signing up for a class and I'm giving a check to staff for the signing of that class, signing up of that, registering that class, the staff member would provide a receipt to that individual. That check will ultimately come to finance so that we deposit that money. So sign-off occurs at both levels. From the point that the staff member handling that transaction has looked up the fee associated with that, and at the end of the day, that check comes to us, and we record that check and recognize that as revenues for the Parks and Rec Department.
So, and then you answered my question, I think, and I just want to make sure I answer the next follow-up question. So at the end of the day, the financial reconciliation of whether it's whatever department it is goes through finance, you record the check, because ultimately you're responsible for the books, right?
Yes, we are responsible for the books, so we record the revenues and the expenses that ultimately come to us.
So, and how long have you been with the city?
5+ years.
So 2015.
I started literally at the end of 2014.
14, all right. So when you took over the city, for example, and I'm just trying to understand, because I see here we get these clean audit reports every year, and every year we're asked to sign off on them. So when we sign off on those, we can assume that those are accurate and true.
That, again, they are fairly presented in terms of our financial position, and that is really the attestation function of the independent auditors. The financial statements, the report basically does say that management is responsible.
So there's actually an independent auditor that goes through and makes sure that the city's finances are consistent with best practices with regard to public funding, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So and that has been a clean audit since. Has it ever not been a clean audit?
I have no. Obviously, I've only been here 5 years, but I have no knowledge that we've ever had.
Well, let me just ask the last question, because I want to be able to say yes to what you're presenting tonight. So in the case, let's say that you didn't have a clean audit, what would happen next?
That would be a major issue. We would actually have to bring it up to both the city manager and the city council.
Oh, so if you had something that was
So if I had a qualified opinion on the financial statements, if I may, that becomes an issue even at the audit committee level.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, all right. Okay, good. So, yeah, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, Vice Mayor Kahani.
As part of the independent audit into your generally generally accepted accounting principles that are used here, did it find that you had visibility into the invoicing processes of all the departments?
There wasn't a specific comment on that aspect.
Okay. So there was no comment on it, but it was reviewed?
What happens in the audit field is that they take samples. So they do not review every single transaction. Obviously, there's no ability. So you could have a situation where in a given year, they may test certain transactions that may not include certain things.
Right. But that wasn't included as part of the overall audit. It didn't include an evaluation of your visibility into the invoicing processes that occur outside of finance, such as at the police department coming in, the money transaction that's occurring outside of finance or in park and rec, and how you reconcile that. There was no evaluation of that?
I'm not aware specifically whether or not they had specific review of either police and or parks and rec. Although it's not uncommon that they would do sampling, and that may include one or the other or both.
And then this is obviously stating that materially we're in good shape.
That's correct.
Right. Thank you.
I have one more question. So in the case of the police department, let's say, so I get an alarm notice. My alarm goes off, and then Jeff calls me. Says, by the way, pay the alarm, right? Because it gets sent to somewhere, and I don't see it. So if there's not an alarm paid, and what do police do with that? Where does that go next?
Well, if there's there are certain things that do come to finance. So in the case of a billing, it comes to finance. So the finance would generate an invoice and send it to the individual that had that alarm violation, so to speak. So the invoice goes to whether it's a residence or a business, and we will track when the payment's made to us. If it's not paid to us, it becomes an outstanding invoice, and we would try to use our regular protocol to try to collect on that invoice.
So in 2015, for example, do police have any outstanding invoices that have yet to be collected that you know of?
I'm not aware of an invoice in 2015 for
Park and Rec?
That gets a little bit, when you say Park and Rec, obviously I'm now in knowledge of things that I weren't.
Well, where would they send it to you? They would send it to you.
If I may, I'm not sure that this is a part of the agenda.
Well, I'm actually just asking, I'm trying to understand what your audit means. So at the end of the year, you give us, I want to study to what degree I can trust it. So I'm going to assume that when you tell us that it's an audit, somebody sends you something, and if you need to collect it, you'll send out a what?
When you say if it's an audit,
so let's say
our procedures.
No, it's about the audit. It'll get to the audit. The question was this: police send out an alarm notice, or whoever you send it out. Who sends it out?
So we get a notification from the police department that there's a false alarm. More likely, part of the fire department is a false alarm. So we would then generate an invoice and send it to the quote unquote, violators.
So you generate the invoices.
We get information from police telling us that there's an alarm violation, and that's when we generate the invoice.
And then when you close, we get the books at the end of the year. And what do you do if they don't pay?
We try to contact them and ask them to pay us.
Who?
So
you?
No, staff. City staff.
Finance staff?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your report, Edmund. Appreciate that. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Motion carries 5-0. All
Thank
council
you.
members voted yes.
Next item, please.
Item 9, communications. 9.1, City District Warrant of Demands are processed and issued on January 6, 2020. This is an information item only, no action required. Item 10, City District Manager reports, Council Board statements and requests, and Council liaison reports.
City Manager report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to provide an update on the Community Police Academy. The Academy is accepting applications until February 3rd, and it's an exciting opportunity for residents who are interested in learning about law enforcement or want to get to know the Foster City Police Department better. The Academy is a free, interactive 8-week course that provides an inside look at local law enforcement and helps strengthen the relationship between the residents and the police department. The class topics include patrol activities and procedures, investigations, traffic and driver safety, crime prevention, and a station tour. The Academy would start on Wednesday, February 5th and meet every Wednesday evening from 6:30 p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Participants must be at least 18 years old and either reside or work in Foster City. If any residents are interested, please enroll now as space is limited. And you could either visit the city's website at www.fostercity.org, or to learn more, you can contact Corporal Travis Murray. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Hindi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very briefly, I had my BOSCA board meeting. We elected a chair, and we talked a little bit about the plan for the upcoming year. And I think I have mentioned at a previous meeting, we're talking about a pilot program about bringing water in a different manner from different sources in case of an emergency. Unfortunately, that program is being put on hold at this moment due to the inability to obtain insurance. So the water, transporting the water was going to go through the city of Hayward, and the city of Hayward, part of the agreement was that they wanted insurance. And no insurance company would underwrite such a coverage at this point, so the program got put on hold.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Awasthi.
Thank you. So I was invited to Penn TV's The Game Show along with council members from Redwood City, South San Francisco, and Menlo Park. We were part of the show almost a year ago when we were newly elected, and 1 year later we met and we shared our thoughts on our experience so far. We had a very candid conversation on the issues facing the region, and we touched on our experience as council member. So it's a great show, and it can be searchable. I think there are several components of it that would be very interesting for our community to watch too. I almost thought I would get an exception, given what our city has gone through, but I didn't. But it was a great experience with our neighboring city council members. And I also met with several community members who reached out to me on their concerns on Measure L, which is a San Mateo Union High School District bond measure. And I also, as part of my responsibilities as a liaison, I met with the members of the board, and I also had conversations with council members of the cities that are part of the high school district. Nothing official at this time for me to share, but I'm attempting to collaborate and with the goal of being able to get something for Foster City, since Foster City taxpayers would be paying for the bond if it goes through. And more to come on that. It's obviously very challenging given the level of influence we can have, but I'm trying my best, and I'll update the community as I have more concrete information. And that would be my update.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Gahani.
So no formal meetings, but I did have an opportunity to meet with Joanne at the chamber and got a sneak peek of the upcoming Living Local magazine, which I am super excited about. I think it's amazing what the chamber's done there. And so look for an update from the chamber in the coming week. That was my only meeting, but I would like to leave you all with one quote from Martin Luther King Jr. "We may have all come in on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now." So keep it in mind.
Thank you. So I attended the Pension Liability Subcommittee that was mentioned tonight. More on that to come during the budget process. I had a tour of the San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District, and it was really quite an interesting tour. They had this whole room of mosquitoes, and it's, you know, they have pictures of bugs on the wall, so it was kind of an odd little tour, but they have a great facility, and actually we had a Board of Trustees meeting too, and we're discussing expanding their facility because they're growing out of the space that they have, and they need to store a lot of vehicles, which I also didn't realize that they had so many vehicles that you have to go out into the marsh, you know, to test these mosquitoes. So it was really quite an interesting event there. I had a PCE special meeting. It was a strategic retreat that was very interesting. I liked the way that they broke us up into groups, and we had workshops. It was a very productive session, and we talked a lot about the mission and the vision for PCE, which is Peninsula Clean Energy. And so that was a very interesting meeting on a Saturday morning. And I think that is about it. Tonight, I would like to adjourn in honor of Roger Chin, who is a former mayor, council member, and planning commissioner. He passed away on Friday. So with that, we'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you.
Closed session 11.1, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code 54957, Title City Manager.